I'm getting in fights. I'm working at a bagel shop. I'm barely making ends meet. And at that point, I just made the decision. I had decided to get back in school. I moved into a studio apartment by myself. I quit partying completely. I didn't go to parties. I got really serious about fitness. So I just started running and lifting weights. And I studied. I'd seen a lot of depression and anxiety in my own family. I'd had a friend commit suicide, another friend become schizophrenic. I think he's still walking the Mission District of San Francisco now. Someone explaining that there's actually an underlying basis for this. And I just poured myself into it.
So let's talk about how to apply quality peer-reviewed science to your day and how to optimize everything from sleep to learning, creativity, meal timing, etc. I'm going to tell you what I do from morning until waking and even what I do while I sleep in order to optimize my sleep. I put my phone on airplane mode about an hour before I go to sleep, and then I set my alarm typically for 6:30 a.m. And some days the alarm wakes me up, other days I wake up before the alarm. The first thing I do after I wake up is I take the pen that's on my nightstand and the pad of paper on my nightstand, and I write down the time in which I woke up. The reason for writing down what time I wake up is because I want to know that average wake-up time. That average wake-up time informs what's called my temperature minimum. It tells me when my body temperature was lowest. The lowest temperature that my body will be at across the 24-hour cycle tends to be 2 hours before my typical wake-up time. So if you're somebody that typically wakes up at 8 a.m., then your temperature minimum is sometime around 6 a.m. I don't care what my actual temperature is. I care when my lowest temperature is, and I know that that lowest temperature is approximately 2 hours before my average wake-up time. You can leverage the temperature minimum for several things. Shifting your clock, shifting your circadian sleep schedule and wake schedule, also for shifting your eating schedule, etc. The second thing I do after I wake up is to get into forward ambulation, which is just nerd speak for taking a walk. Getting into a mode of forward ambulation and especially experiencing visual flow has a powerful effect on the nervous system. Many of you have probably heard about the amygdala for its role in anxiety and fear and threat detection. There are now at least half a dozen quality papers published in quality peer-reviewed journals that show that forward ambulation and generating optic flow in particular has this incredible property of lowering activity in the amygdala and thereby reducing levels of anxiety. So for me, this process of taking a walk each morning isn't about exercise. It's not about burning calories. It's not about any of that. It's really about getting into optic flow and reducing the levels of amygdala activation. Getting sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning is absolutely vital to mental and physical health. It is perhaps the most important thing that any and all of us can and should do in order to promote metabolic well-being. Get outdoors, ideally with no sunglasses if you can do that safely, even if there's cloud cover. More photons, light information, are coming through that cloud cover than would be coming from a very bright indoor bulb. 2 minutes would be a minimum. 10 minutes would be even better. And if you can, 30 minutes would be fantastic. It sets in motion a huge number of biological cascades within every cell and organ of your body, from your liver to your gut to your heart to your brain. It really sets things down the right path. If you wake up before the sun comes out, it's fine to turn on artificial lights, but then you would want to get outside as soon as you can to get this natural light stimulation of your eyes. So now we have a first protocol, which is to write down the time of day that you wake up. The second protocol is to take a walk first thing in the morning. And the third protocol is woven in with that walk, at least for me, which is to get that sunlight exposure. Now, if you can't get sunlight exposure, you're going to focus on one particular aspect of fitness. Maybe it's endurance, maybe it's strength, maybe it's hypertrophy. In particular, it might be hypertrophy for a particular muscle group or muscle groups. This particular protocol begins on Sunday, although that's simply the day that I happen to begin the protocol. And again, this protocol is not important because it's the one that I follow. I follow it because it is important. For me, the goal is always to get either 60 to 75 minutes of jogging. So this would be so-called zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 cardio is the kind of cardiovascular exercise in which you're pushing yourself to move such that you're breathing faster than normal. Your heart is beating faster than normal. However, you are still able to sustain a conversation. You could replace jogging with rowing on a rowing machine, or maybe even rowing an actual boat if you have access to that, or cycling or swimming. Something that allows you continuous movement for 60 to 75 minutes at that zone 2 threshold. A specific change that you can make to this Sunday long endurance, or at least what I consider long for me. I mean, it's by no means a marathon or an Ironman, but this long endurance training. And that's the use of a weight vest. I purchased one of these weight vests that can be anywhere from 10 to 50 pounds. What I use in the weight vest is irrelevant, but it certainly changes the level of effort required when taking a hike or even a walk. If you don't want to buy a weight vest or can't afford one, there's a simple solution to that. I actually have a good anecdote about that. Weighted backpack, or even just any kind of strong sack that you can put over your shoulders or even carry in your arms, is going to work exceedingly well to build in some extra requirement for effort. So you certainly don't have to purchase a weight vest in order to get the benefits of bringing additional weight. Getting 180 to 200 minutes of zone 2 cardio per week has enormous positive effects on longevity and enormous positive effects on general health. Leg workouts, like all resistance training workouts for me, consist of about, again, I'm not neurotically attached to this, but about 10 minutes of warming up, and then about 50 to 60 minutes of real work. Past 60 minutes, you start getting increases in cortisol that really impede recovery. And I personally am somebody that does not recover very well from high intensity exercise. I recover rather slowly, and I benefit from working the same muscle group about twice per week with longer, or I should say more days of rest in between those workouts. For me, it's really training each muscle group twice per week, once directly and then once indirectly, either during another weight training workout or during a cardiovascular, I should say, endurance training workout. Exercise selection, as Dr. Andy Galpin pointed out, is a very important variable. And the key thing to emphasize for that variable is that you need to be able to perform the movement safely. I've been able to achieve the strength and hypertrophy goals that I've been seeking doing things like leg extensions and hack squats, or for hamstrings doing things like leg curls and glute ham raises, or for calves doing standing and seated calf raises, and so on. I generally follow a program where for about a month, so 3 to 4 weeks, I will do all my resistance training in the repetition range of about 4 to 8 repetitions, so that's rather heavy. And then for the next month, switch to repetition range that's closer to 8 to 12, maybe even 15 repetitions per set, but do fewer sets overall. So maybe just 2 to 3 sets per exercise. Again, just 2 exercises per muscle group typically. So basically it's 1 month heavier, the next month slightly lighter, although I wouldn't say light, I would say moderate weight and moderate rep range. That tends to work well for me. Frankly, I like to train heavier. I enjoy training in the 4 to 8 rep range. However, I notice that if I do that for more than 4 weeks in a row and I don't switch over to training in the 8 to 12, maybe in 15 repetition range for about a month, well then I can't make continuous progress. I start to actually lose ground. Does that mean that I never get 10 repetitions on a week when I'm supposed to train in the 4 to 8 repetition range? No, occasionally I'll venture up into the 10 repetition range. I'm really just trying to get overall cardiovascular fitness, overall strength, overall hypertrophy where I need it, maintain muscle size, etc. in muscle groups where I'm just trying to maintain. That's really my goal.
Bye.